Commander says his troops are now within hours of entering the city of Mosul. You can see them here approaching the eastern city limits, and we've learned the civilians stuck inside Mosul can see them too. Some of them are already fighting back. Witnesses telling CNN 4 ISIS militants have been killed by resistance fighters in an outdoor market. This is happening after months of already fierce fighting, and an even more intense battle could begin within the city at any time. Nick Payton-Walsh has been embedded with U.S.-trained Iraqi special forces. Hi, Nick.
Carol, we're seeing the noose tighten slowly around the city. It won't be that well sealed to some degree, but we'll see a lot of Iraqi special forces now nipping at the edges of the city limits. One area, Gogjali, seems to be part of their focus here. That is Mosul city proper, and residents inside that area are reporting hearing gunfire, clashes, and even airstrikes too, as civilians also move out from there, fearing what may be coming down the road. Now, we saw ourselves the kind of intensity of the clashes between those special forces and ISIS at the front line just a couple of days ago. The ISIS just beyond the berms. The incoming is from behind it. A truck that pops up, opens fire and vanishes. ISIS less than a kilometre away, firing at Iraqi Special Forces position. This is a constant day in, day out. Now, of course, you mentioned the resistance inside the city. Well, there have been reports of drive-by shootings targeting ISIS officials there. We know from talking to those involved in planning this insurrection that they aim at high-profile figures to try and disrupt the leadership, really. 2 or 3 instances we've seen of this in the last 24 hours or so, and an attack on an ISIS checkpoint. Is this the beginning of something larger? Possibly. It certainly seems to match the timing of Iraqi forces reaching the city outskirts. Be in no doubt, though, Carol, this will be long and messy. It's a huge city, formerly of 2 million, 1.2 million thought trapped in and around it at the moment. It will be bloody because we know for a fact ISIS have prepared for this for months. Many mines, many booby traps in the way of these Iraqi special forces. Remember, though, these people are the tip of the spear, frankly, fighting for behalf of the world at this stage against ISIS and getting a lot of casualties, as we saw ourselves in the past few days. Carol?
Nick, you embedded with Iraqi forces. Did they seem a disciplined army to you? What was that like?
Yes, to some degree. I think the lack of equipment and training that they sometimes have impedes their ability to act in the way you might, for example, see a NATO military behave. You know, they face deep challenges in terms of their positioning, in terms of how they navigate around these huge areas, but be in no doubt they're very dedicated, courageous, frankly, in the speed in which they move against ISIS, in which they held off an ISIS attack we saw as well. And as I say, they're the ones who are really on the ground doing the fight on behalf of the rest of the civilized world against ISIS and its so-called caliphate. Carol?
All right, Nick Payton-Walsh reporting live in Iraq this morning. Supporters of a Turkish newspaper are protesting today after 13 journalists are arrested, accused of helping enemies of the state. One of those arrested is the editor-in-chief of that opposition paper. It's all part of a continuing crackdown in Turkey. The Turkish government says the journalists helped legitimize this summer's failed coup. Over the weekend, more than 10,000 public servants were fired and more than a dozen media companies shut down. More than 15,000 people are now living in temporary shelters in Italy, forced to evacuate after a powerful earthquake hit central Italy over the weekend. 20 people were hurt in the magnitude 6.6 quake. It was the strongest earthquake to hit the country in 3 decades. It follows a series of tremors that have shaken central Italy since last Wednesday, and another earthquake that killed nearly 300 people back in August. Still to come in the newsroom with...
Where will the lead take us today? Straight to the source.
Would Israel be willing to go along with those demands?
To a side you haven't seen.
That sounds a young man's game.
All the way to the heart of a problem.
What is going on in Ferguson, Missouri, in downtown America?
Maybe all the way to the president.
Do you think you were naive back then?
The Lead with Jake Tapper. Weekdays at 4.